Hey there! How many of you have dreamed about living in an RV like this, and maybe you're on a fixed income and don't know if you can afford it? Or maybe you are working and you have income coming in, but you really don't know what to expect out here and how much you're really going to need to live. I'm going to answer those questions for you today as I go through my budget of living in an RV. My name is Carolyn and welcome to my RV life. And I've been on the road, most of you know, I've been on the road now 2.5 years. My first year on the road, I did a budget video, and my budget was, admittedly, it was very high. I bought a lemon, and I had a lot of problems with my RV, and I included all the costs of my mistake of buying a lemon in my budget. And it kind of freaked a lot of people out. I'm going to put a link to the video up here. That really kind of freaked a lot of people out. You know, my first year expenses were more than many people pay to live in a sticks and bricks. So I've been on the road, like I said, almost 3 years now, and almost a year in my new RV, Phoenix here. And so I think I have a little bit more of I'm tempted to say realistic, but you know, my first budget might have been realistic for those other people who bought a lemon and had to put, let me see, within the first 8 months, all brand new tires, brand new house battery, brand new alternator, brand new transmission, and a whole bunch of other things that I don't even think about I can't even think about right now. But I bought a newer RV, a 2005. My old one was a 93. I've had fewer major, less problems. And so today I'm going to go through my budget of after being on the road almost 3 years. I'm going to go through what my budget really is now that I'm not driving a lemon. So you ready to get started and find out how much it costs to live in an RV or van? Let's get started. Okay, so are you ready to take a look at my budget and how much it costs me to live in a 24-foot Class C full-time on the road? So I want to kind of set some expectations about this before I get started. Number one, I'm sharing the major categories for everything that I spend. I think I've got, I don't know, maybe 10 categories of things that you can expect when you live on the road, mostly for RV because that's what I live in. But whether you want to live in an RV or a van, my hope that by doing this video is that you're going to use this as a guide. These are my expenses. I don't expect anybody else's expenses to be exactly the same, but based on my experience, some of the things are very accurate. I mean, gas and how much I spend on propane and things like that. But again, everybody is different. I hope that you will use this as a guide and maybe as a starting point. Some areas like dump stations, like even how much I spend on gas, I went a little high on purpose. Some of these expenses like dump stations, I kind of put in worst case scenario in case I have to pay for dump stations. So just keep that in mind that this is a guide. These are my expenses. There's a lot of things a lot of you are going to see and say, oh my gosh, you could do that for cheaper. My cell phone bill could be cheaper. There's a lot of things that I could do cheaper. But I choose not to. I am very aware of all the options. But if you are budget conscious, just be aware that not everything in my budget is the absolute cheapest because that's just not me. I would rather pay more for convenience, for ease of use and consistency. So I value things like that more than I value saving a few dollars. And so as you listen to me talk about my budget, I hope that you can keep that in mind. And if budget is, number one priority for you, just know that you can find probably cheaper ways to do almost everything that I'm about to talk about. But this is, I think, a good baseline for a lot of people. And so let's get started. First of all, I just want to say that if you don't have an emergency fund, I don't care if you have a brand new RV, but especially if you have an older RV, if you don't have an emergency fund, I would say at a minimum, a very minimum of $3,000, and I'd say $5,000 really, if you want to be sure that you can handle anything that comes along, I would recommend $5,000, but a minimum of $3,000. This is going to be really, really hard to hear, but if you do not have that, don't come out here. I mean, I just don't. Something breaks down, you need a new transmission, you have no emergency fund, and you're screwed. And I know that's going to be really hard because a lot of people just want to come out here especially with an older RV. Well, okay, I bought an older RV because it was all I could afford. I was still earning a good living. My thought was that I would live on the road, I would save a whole bunch of money, I would be able to replenish my 401k, I would be able to replenish my savings. I have not been able to do that yet. I mean, there's other reasons for that in my case. You know, I took a lower paying job and things like that. But I just want to say that you just never know what's going to come up, what life is going to throw at you. So if your thought is, okay, well, I don't have an emergency fund, I'm living on $800 a month, and you know, I'm watching all these videos that say I can live on $600 a month, so I'll be able to save $200 a month to put into an emergency fund. No, don't. Don't. You know, I mean, unless you have somebody that can fix your RV when it breaks and who's willing to do the work for free, and you're not worried about getting stranded out in an area and not having to deal with repairs, you know, I mean, extenuating circumstances aside, absolutely don't come out here unless you have at least $3,000 in an emergency fund. That's my opinion. Actually, it's not just my opinion. I think it's the opinion of pretty much everybody out here. You just never know what's going to happen. All right, so let's talk budget. Number one, gas. How much? That's the biggest question. How much do I spend on gas? I drive a lot. I went to Alaska this year. I went to Florida, and you know, you have to be spending a fortune in gas. On average, I have traveled 1,000 miles a month. That's my average, 1,000 miles a month or 12,000 miles a year, which is what the average American travels, coincidentally. I didn't mean to do that, but that's kind of the way it goes. So I'm going to base the gas budget on my experience of driving 12,000 miles a year. Now, again, this is my budget. You have seen me. I travel a lot. You don't need to travel this much, but this is a baseline because this is what I know. But I just want to say I got the question recently. I'm on fixed income. How do I budget for travel? The easy answer to that is figure out how much it costs to fill your tank, how many miles you get per tank, and then how much money you can afford to put in your tank every month, and schedule your traveling around that, right? You know, if you can only afford $100 a month for gas and you get 400 miles per tank, for $100 you can travel 400 miles. That's huge. That's a lot. You know, almost any state, you know, it's going to be a little harder in some of the southern states, but in almost any state, you're going to find plenty of boondocking within a 400-mile radius. I mean, you know, really, you're going to find a ton of boondocking. I have a 52-gallon tank. I get about 8 miles to the gallon, and so I get about 400 miles per tank. So for me, driving 1,000 miles a month, it costs me $375. So that is my gas budget for the month, is about $375 is what I spend. Again, you can spend more, you can spend less. You can really adjust your driving and your traveling to your budget. It's super easy. Unlike, see, this is what I love about being an RVer. Your rent is fixed, period. You pay X amount in rent, period. I paid, I think when I left, what was I paying? $1,500 to live in a 400 square foot box. And that amount was fixed no matter what, every month, whether I was there or on the trail or in Greece or in Germany, no matter where I was, I had to pay $1,500 a month. Living in an RV, and this is the way I look at it, I look at gas as my mortgage payment or my rent payment, and that amount that I pay for my rent, my new rent or my new mortgage fluctuates depending on me. I have total control over that. That's what I love about RV. I have control over how much I spend on gas. You can live in, you know, I'm thinking Arizona. You have to travel, I don't know, 20 miles maybe. You can spend 14 days here, then you have to move to another district or another area, maybe 20 miles. You spend 2 weeks there. You might have to move to another one. I mean, you can literally probably get away with traveling less than 100 miles a month. What is that? 20 bucks in gas, you know, depending on what you drive. So 375 is mine. That's what I spend. What you spend on gas is completely up to you. Number two, how much do I spend on power? That's electricity, heat, everything that I need to live. You know, run my laptops, run my refrigerator, run my stove, run my heater, my hot water, you know, charge my batteries for my camera. As many of you know, I have solar. And I'm not going to get into the initial layout costs to get set up. I've done many videos on solar. I'm going to put a link to that. You can go watch the solar videos. I also did a video on super simple electrical. I broke electrical systems down to the easiest form that you can understand so that you can help plan and budget for what you're going to spend. But the two, besides my solar, which I think I spent $1,500 to get installed, I've got 260 watts on the roof, and I have a 100-watt flexible panel that I move around, and that was about $1,500 installed with a new controller and all kinds of stuff. And so most of my electricity I don't pay for. I mean, I paid for $1,500 up front, but now there's no charge. So I didn't include that initial outlay of cost in my budget. My only costs now for electricity, since my solar is already paid for, is propane, and my refrigerator, my gas, my stove, my oven, my hot water, all run on propane. Right? That's it, right? Yeah. And I have about, I think it's a 7-gallon tank, and I probably fill that completely full once a month. So 7 gallons at $3 a gallon. And again, I went really high on propane. But actually, well, you know, in Alaska, I think I paid up to $5, and sometimes in the South, I pay $1.75. So I think $3 is a pretty decent average. So that's about $21 a month for propane. And then I have a generator. My onboard generator doesn't work. I have an outboard portable generator. It's, you know, it's kind of hard to tell you how much I use that. In Alaska, I used a lot. Even though, you know, the sun shines 24/7 there, it rained a lot. And I pretty much ran the generator for, okay, let's say I ran it 20 hours a week. I estimated that I probably use about 4 gallons of gas a month for the generator. Because like right now, I think since I've been in the lower 48, I've used it maybe 10 hours in the last 2 or 3 months. And I think I can run it on a gallon of gas. It'll probably run 6 or 7 hours. I think it runs it does pretty well. So I estimated 4 gallons of gas for that a month at $3 a gallon, and so that's $12. So to power my RV, because I do most of my power with solar, I spend about $33 a month to power. Number 3, let's talk house maintenance. And when I say house maintenance, I mean everything inside to maintain my house. I just bumped my head. The RV part of my home. I included dumping my tanks in this. Now, most of the time, I can dump for free. You know, I don't know, maybe 70% of the time, I can pretty much find a free dump station. Sometimes I pay 10, sometimes I pay 20. If you're going to be staying in RV parks, it's included, so that's not going to be an added expense. And I guess that's another thing. My budget is based on boondocking 95% of the time, which is what I do. I don't usually pay for RV parks, but I'll get to that in a minute. I went ahead and put $10 per dump, because I think that's about average. You know, if you have to go to an RV park or something, they'll charge $20, but it's not very often. Usually I pay like $5 to $10, or I get it for free. So I estimated 2 dumps per month, which is about what I do, at $20 for both. The other things that you might need to just I'm going to talk about, because you might have questions. My house batteries, what does it take to maintain them? Nothing. I have to put water in them like every 2 or 3 months. I have to check them because I didn't get the AGM batteries. I did change to golf cart batteries, another story. But other than that, there's no maintenance. Just make sure they have water. My solar, no maintenance there. I just have to go out and clean them off every once in a while. My fridge, no maintenance there. You know, defrost it every once in a while, keep it running. My heater, as far as I know, there's no maintenance on the heater and no maintenance on the hot water. So, you know, it's pretty low maintenance. Oh, you know what? I should have talked about roof maintenance and stuff like that, which I didn't do. But yeah, so there might be a little bit more that you might need to put in the budget for things like roof maintenance. That's not something I've done yet. I'm probably going to be doing it next summer because I do have some roof leaks and I want to get my roof resealed. So I'll follow up with you. I'll do a video on what that's going to cost. I think, if I remember correctly from what I heard, I think that might be $1,000, $1,500. So what would that be? You know, another $100 a month for RV maintenance. So I probably went low on this one. The only things I really included here were the dump stations, things like black tank deodorizers and cleaners, you know, which isn't much. Water filters. Some people use the inline water filters that, you know, just filters it as they put it in their tank. I just use Brita filters. And then garbage. I don't pay for garbage. I just, you know, put my little garbage bags, just, you know, little sacks at a time in public garbage cans. And so I estimated house maintenance at $35 a month. And again, now that I think about it, I think that's probably too low. Things like resealing the roof and other, yeah, I didn't even include all the Eternabond tape. All right, so that's a little low. You know what? Go ahead and add $100 to that for all the other things. So let's make that $135 for house maintenance. Okay, now let's talk about the engine chassis maintenance, the van part of my RV. Oil changes, if you're going to be driving 12,000 miles a year, that's at least 3 times a year, and I pay $50 per oil change. That's $150 a year, about $12 a month. I just kind of rounded down here actually and put 10, but let's say 12. And then tires, brakes, tune-ups. If you're driving 10,000 miles, 12,000 miles a year, then tires and brakes are going to be about every 3 years. And tires and brakes are going to be, I estimated that at about $4,000. I just had to put on 4 new tires, and it cost me about $1,200 just for the tires. And I haven't done brake jobs or anything yet, but yeah, I would estimate about $4,000 every few years for maintenance, tires, brakes, tune-ups. Estimated that at about $100 a month. All of the chassis maintenance, I estimated at $110 a month that you should budget. And I want to suggest to you that you budget for this. You budget for the $110 a month for the chassis. You budget for the $135 a month for the house maintenance. And every month that you don't spend that, put the extra in a savings account, separate from your emergency fund, okay? Your emergency fund is your emergency fund for emergencies, but I would have a separate maintenance savings account as well. So on your house maintenance, for example, if you're budgeting $135 and you only spend $35 a month, put that $100 into your maintenance budget. Same with your chassis maintenance. If you're budgeting $110 a month and you're only spending $10 or $50 this month for an oil change, you put the remaining $55 in a savings account for maintenance. So that way these big expenses don't hurt you as much when they do come along. You plan for them and you save for them, okay? Knowing that this is your budget. Okay, I hope that all makes sense so far. Number 5, insurance. How much does insurance cost? And in this category, I'm including kind of RV living insurance, and I'll talk about health insurance in a minute. But my RV insurance, I have full-timers insurance, and you're going to have to shop around for that because not every auto insurance carrier carries full-timers insurance. Full-timers insurance is your basic automobile. You can get full coverage, comprehensive, collision, all of that. But on top of that, you get what is very similar to a homeowner's policy. It covers theft and loss. Things get stolen. Somebody walked along right now and tripped over my tripod and broke an ankle and decided to sue me. I'm also covered for that under my RV insurance policy. And I pay $125 for that. The other is roadside assistance, and I have Good Sam. So I pay $50 a year for Good Sam roadside assistance. So my insurance budget is $175. Groceries, $400 a month. That's what I spend. People spend less, people spend more, people have families, eating mostly organic and not penny pinching on the food that I buy. I buy what I like. I don't care how much it costs. I pay $10 or more, $13 sometimes for a pound of coffee. I used to say I eat mostly whole foods, and kind of looking through at what I buy, I don't buy a lot of whole foods. I buy $6 veggie burgers, for a pack of 2. I buy mostly organic. It is not hard in my travels to find most of the food that I like to eat, a plant-based diet and organic. Sometimes I do pay a little bit more, especially in Alaska, but or if I'm in a small town, I might pay a little bit more. But I think my $400 grocery budget is not because I travel, it's just because of the way I eat. So if you're concerned that you're going to be out here and you're going to pay more for food, eating what you normally eat, Most of the time you're not going to. You're pretty much going to be paying what you already pay. Every town almost has a Walmart, and Walmart prices are what they are. Every town has a dollar store, and you know, I know a lot of people, I've read and seen videos where people get good deals at the dollar store. So if your food budget now is $200, it'll be $200 on the road. You know, unless you travel to Alaska, and then, you know, that'll get you half of what you normally get. But in most cases. Okay, so that's groceries. I spend $400 a month. Number 7, health and personal care. In this category, I included haircuts, the supplements that I use for my diet, you know, essential oils, things that I use to, you know, stay clean and healthy. And for that, I estimated about $20 a month. I get my hair cut every 3 or 4 months, just like I always have, except now I go to Supercuts. Instead of spending $100 on a haircut, I spend $25 or $30. So, yeah, that's a big difference, and it doesn't matter to me anymore. I don't care. But anyway, so yeah, my haircuts now are $25 or $30 instead of $100, and everything else that I need to, you know, be healthy and happy, I estimated about $10 a month. So that's about $20 for that. My health insurance is through the health exchange or Obamacare, and because I have a much lower income than when I started, because I switched careers, I now pay $70, and that is subsidized through the health exchange. Depending on your income, if you need health care, that's what it is. I actually could have paid nothing. There were policies available to me. I just renewed it this year, and there were policies available to me for $0, but you know, I guess the liberal in me, I don't know, felt that if I could pay a little bit more, why not? So I took less of a subsidy. I didn't take my full subsidy. I took less, so that other people who might really need it, I didn't feel that I really needed it, and so I chose to pay a little bit more. So I could have gotten my health insurance for free, and I chose not to. So I pay $70. I paid as much as I felt I could afford to pay, and so that's just my thing. But just want to let you know that the reason I brought that up is because health insurance is very affordable if you're on a fixed income. Very affordable. I mean, especially if you make under $20,000 a year. Your options for health insurance, yeah, the plans suck. But for somebody like me who like never goes to the doctor, actually I did just go to the emergency room and paid a lot. I got the bill for that, and that was not inexpensive. Just plan accordingly, study the plans. I think the online exchanges have gotten really good and very self-explanatory. The one I just did was extremely easy to navigate, asking me questions about how often I go to the doctor, how I'm going to be using my health care, and then it recommended probably 10 different policies for me, and like I said, at least half of them were free. So that's $70 I pay for health insurance. Laundry is about $15 a month. Mail, here's one that I pay too much for. My mail is $35 a month, and yeah, that's high. That $35 does include the cost to forward my mail to me every other month or so. So I have to pay postage costs. I don't know if a lot of people are aware of this. When people send things to my mailbox in Nevada, I then have to pay a fee, a handling fee, and postage to have it forwarded to me wherever I am. And so that comes out to about $35 for me. I think the mailbox was expensive. I went for a medium-sized mailbox, which was, I think, $100 more a year. Because I do get so many packages, because you guys are so thoughtful and generous and you send me stuff. So I did go for the larger mailbox, and the mailbox alone is about $25 a month. So that's through the UPS store. Yeah, like I said, it's really high, but this year I had some challenges with mail forwarding at really critical times when I had banking things come up. I was in Canada, and this is one of those cases that I opted to pay for consistency and convenience. And so I'm willing to pay more to know that when I need something, it's going to be there. My total health and personal care budget expenditure is $140 a month. Okay, and that includes health insurance, haircuts, personal care, laundry, and mail. Okay? All right. Next on the list is my phone and my internet. And I've done a whole bunch of videos on how I get internet on the road, so I'm not going to go too in depth, but it seems like I I do a ton of videos about everything, and I still get millions of questions about them. And so if I do write to you and say, hey, look at this video, instead of writing 13 paragraphs about how I do it, I hope you can understand. Any question, let me just say this, any question you have about RV living, I've answered in videos. That's the purpose of the videos. But my phone and internet, again, this is another area where I know that you can get it cheaper, and I choose not to on purpose. But I have Verizon. I have a Samsung Galaxy S7 Verizon Unlimited plan. And for the cost of the phone, which they spread out over, I think, 3 years, and for the unlimited plan, I pay $125 a month. Unlimited plan on Verizon gives me 15 gigs of 4G, and then it tethers back to 2G or 3G. My AT&T unlimited plan, I did not include this in the budget because most people don't have to carry 2 cell phone plans. I wanted to be realistic in my budget in what the average person might be spending, I guess, on some things. But anyway, I didn't think it would benefit you for me to include both, but I will talk about both. The AT&T plan gives me 22 gigs, and then it tethers me back. So usually, though, AT&T has never tethered me back. I've used as many as 80 gigs, and it's still most of the time. Lately, they've been tethering me a little bit. Maybe I'm being considered a gross user, I think is what they call it. But that's also, I think, $115 a month, and I just use a Wi-Fi mobile hotspot for that. The Verizon plan, 14 gigs, they send you a message. You're almost out, we're going to slow you down, and blah, blah, blah. So I tested it this month for the first time. Usually when I run out of Verizon, I just switch over to AT&T, which doesn't tether me. But this month I was like, you know what, I'm going to try it. And even once they tethered me back, I think it kind of depends also on how much the tower is being used, but most of the time, even when a Verizon tethered me back, I was able to watch videos. Facebook, for some reason, always seems to be really, really slow. Like, you need a good connection for that. Stuff like that was slow. I couldn't do 2 things at once. You know, I couldn't watch a video and check Facebook or check my email. Oh, I chose to include Verizon in my budget because Verizon is my phone. But honestly, if I had a choice of plans, if I were only to go with one plan, I would go with AT&T. Far and wide, from the East Coast, from Florida and Tennessee to Alaska, AT&T, hands down, has had the better service. There has only been 1 or 2 instances where I have had Verizon and not AT&T. Like, literally, I can count on one hand. I'm thinking 2 or 3. The times where the opposite has been true, where I've had AT&T and not Verizon, I can't even count. Or where Verizon has been really weak. I do like having both because it is, especially because I work and I need to upload videos, it is nice to have both. I'm pretty much always covered in areas where you can get internet. I mean, if I'm super remote, then I can't get anything, and that's just the way it is, like on the Dalton Highway. So yeah, I'm just going to stick with one plan for the budget, for the purposes of the budget. My Verizon, my phone, I still have like 2 years left to pay it off. I've got a $125 a month bill for internet on my phone, and again, watch the video if you want to know how that works, but $125 a month for internet and cell phone, okay? And that brings me to entertainment. What do I do to entertain myself? And how much does it cost? It's funny, you know, I moved into an RV to be closer to nature and spend more time outside, but especially this time of year, it gets dark early, it's cold, I'm alone, you know, I'm not like I'm outside building campfires all the time. A lot of times you can't have a campfire, and sitting around a campfire alone gets kind of boring. After like, I don't know, 20 minutes, right? So I watch a lot of TV. I really do. And I have my favorite shows, and, you know, one of my shows might be on Netflix, might be on Hulu, one might be on Hulu. So here is what I do for entertainment. I have Netflix, which is $8 a month. I have Amazon Prime, which I can stream videos and things, you know, a lot of documentaries. Actually, there's a lot of good stuff on Amazon Prime. I also get free shipping through Amazon Prime, so I get a lot for my $12 a month for Amazon Prime. And then I also have Hulu. Hulu is good. I can stream, like, what's the new show I'm watching? This Is Us. Really like that show a lot. So on Hulu, you can stream what's current You know, like This Is Us, I think airs on Tuesday nights. I don't get to watch it on Tuesday night, but I can watch it on Wednesday. Netflix doesn't really offer that kind of close to real-time watching, and neither does Amazon Prime. So that's what I like about Hulu. You get pretty close. You get like current seasons of stuff, even if it's a day late. That's $32 for my entertainment online, and I use my internet signal from my cell phone, and I watch TV on my laptop. Miscellaneous entertainment items, and that's like eating out. It's like when I go into town and I get my coffee, my iced coffee in the afternoon. Books, I buy Kindle books quite often. Actually, and I keep thinking I should update to Amazon Prime books or whatever so I can get free books, but I always feel like I don't buy enough. But so my coffees, my eating out, clothes, I still buy too many clothes. It's one thing I'm trying to, I buy clothes I don't need. I have like 10 sweatshirts now. I mean, I was just going through like all the jackets and sweatshirts. That's still something I'm working on, and also trying to buy more secondhand, and I'm a work in progress on that. But also, so I included clothes in this budget as well. So my entertainment, clothes, coffees, eating out, and I don't eat out a lot, is about $82 a month. That's my budget. $82 a month. That's Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime, eating out, getting coffee, I don't know, maybe once a week when I go into town, once every couple weeks when I go into town, the books that I buy and things like that. So that's $82 a month. All right, we're down to the last budget item, miscellaneous. I just threw in a miscellaneous category, and this covers things like campgrounds and RV parks. I'm a boondocker. I hate RV parks and campgrounds. I kind of like them sometimes when I have them all to myself, but even then, I'm just not a huge fan of campgrounds and RV parks. But I probably say either I have to because I can't find boondocking, or maybe it's a beautiful area and I decide I want to stay in a state park. If I do stay in campgrounds, it's usually like a state park or something like that. Or I decide, you know what, I want hookups for whatever reason. I want internet, usually if I'm near a city. I'm thinking like I was near Chattanooga or something. I stayed in an RV park, or in northern Washington when I crossed the border near Bellingham. I stayed in a KOA of all places, and it actually wasn't that bad. But I probably spend about 10 nights a year in campgrounds and RV parks. The miscellaneous category covers the 10 nights a year I spend in RV parks or campgrounds. Also when I go to the Bay Area, if I'm not parked on the street at a friend's house, which can be noisy, so I'll go to a campground. I have a favorite campground I like to stay at. And entrance fees for parks, I did not buy an annual national park pass this year because I don't visit them that much. Again, you know me, not a big fan of crowds and where everybody goes. I like to go off the beaten track, and so I didn't buy a national park pass, but once in a while I need to pay a park entrance fee or something like that. I don't know, I threw that in there. In my miscellaneous category, I put $30 a month, just for odds and ends that maybe I forgot to cover and other little things. And again, when you're planning your budget, I hope you're just using this as a guide. I hope that you could say, okay, this is what Carolyn spends based on her experience. My experience is going to be different in this way or that way, and I'm going to adjust my personal budget accordingly. And I also want to say that if you do choose to use these numbers and you aren't spending as much as I spend on, or you aren't spending as much as you expect to spend on these items, put it away in savings. So that brings me to the last considerations, savings and retirement. I'm not going to talk about that as far as a budget item. It's individual. I think everybody needs to do what they can do. I do think it is extremely important. I cashed out the rest of my 401k to buy Matilda. I didn't have much left. I only had $10,000 left. I had gone through it building my business. I think, 8 years in business, and especially early on when I left my husband, and my business was just started anyway. I blew through a lot of my 401k in the early years, and so by the time I came on the road, I didn't have much left, and I justified cashing it out thinking, oh, I'm saving $1,500 a month in rent. I'll be able to replenish that in a year. And here we are 2.5 years on the road, and I still have not put anything into retirement, but I will. And I'm sharing this because shit happens, and this is why an emergency budget is so critical. Stuff happens. Your best laid plans, just, what do they say? go to hell in a handbasket. I don't think that's the saying. I highly, highly recommend saving for retirement. It's still a goal of mine, and I am actually now finally getting to a point where I'm putting a little bit away in a savings account, and a retirement plan is next. That's individual. That's up to you. I encourage you, even if it's just $20 a month, to try to put something away. Put that in your budget if you can. But I didn't want to put it in this budget because, you know, I'm not going to say put $300 towards retirement, and then people are going to see, you know, this huge budget. And anyway, people freak out. So anyway, grand total. So a couple of years ago, you all looked at my budget. I tried to separate my line items and say, this is my budget, this is what I spent on expenses, but everybody took the lump sum and they looked at it as, oh my God, $3,000. Oh my God. People really freaked out. All right, anyway, but $1,505 is what I live on every month to live in an RV, boondocking, traveling 12,000 miles, living on public lands. $1,500. $1,500, I think, for most people who have retirement pensions or who are still earning, I think that is definitely doable. A lot of the people who write to me, I've seen just even recently, I think a couple patrons say that $1,500, $1,600 is about what they are living on out here. I think this is actually a very realistic budget if you are, if you want to travel a little bit, if you want to see some places. You know, the $400 I spend on groceries, you might spend on more travel, whatever that looks like for you. I do think that $1,500 is a pretty reasonable budget. I know people live out here on $600 a month. I think that's an anomaly. I don't think most people live out here on $600 a month. And there are people who live out here on $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. There are people who have RV payments, and you know, I don't know what that would cost, but I don't. If you want to do a big trip like Alaska, you're gonna need to plan. If you're on a fixed income, you need to plan that. And I talked about that in the early videos of going up to Alaska. I had to ration my travel because I just paid my quarterly taxes. Yeah, I had just paid my annual taxes. That's right, because I left in April. So I had just paid my taxes. And I think I also had to pay a couple quarterlies too. So, I mean, I was wiped out. As a small business owner, these are things that we have to do. We don't get taxes taken out, you know, of a paycheck. We have to pay a lot of money at the end of the year, or, you know, quarterlies. And I do pay both. So, yeah, so my trip to Alaska, I had to travel as much as I could afford. I had, I think, maybe $1,000 in the bank, and I knew that wasn't going to get me from Washington to Alaska, and getting 400 miles to the gallon wasn't going to get me all the way to Alaska. So I moved when I could afford to move. And as I wrote to somebody recently in an email, I drove to my paycheck. It was like, okay, I get paid in 2 weeks, and so I need to ration my money in those 2 weeks. I can't be driving 1,000 miles a day because I couldn't afford it. And that's just one of the things I love about this lifestyle, the flexibility to really create your own life and to not have to be tied down to static things and static expenses like mortgage or rent. I'm in charge of my own destiny. I'm in charge of my own budget. You know, very much. That means I can work as little or as much as I want, travel as little or as much as I want. If I can't afford $400 one month on groceries, then I'll live on kale. I don't know, kale and beans. I actually made a big pot of lentil soup out of dried whole lentil beans and some vegetable broth, and that'll last me probably 4 or 5 days, and it probably cost me $5 to make. So, you know, the purpose of this video, again, is to give you an idea, to give you mostly, I think, the categories of things that you're going to need to think about, and a starting point. Sharing my experience and how I do it, and giving you a starting point so that you can say, yeah, okay, well, this is how Carolyn does it, but I don't think I'm going to do it that way. So I think my budget will be different. It'll be this or it'll be that. All right. That's it. $1,500 a month is what it costs for me to live in an RV. Hope that you found that helpful, and I hope it inspires you, gives you some food for thought, and helps you in your planning of your RV life. All right. I'll see you next time. In the meantime, be happy, be free, and be kind. I'll see you soon.